Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be testing out the new Viseart Paris Reverie ETENDU palette. So this is their newest, larger palette, and I am so excited because at the time that I am filming this, Viseart is currently having their Golden Goddess sale. So their products are up to 30% off, and this palette is included. So I'm hoping it's a good one. I will, of course, have it linked down below, but let's just get into the details on this palette. So as always, this palette has a 36-month shelf life and is made in the USA, which is standard for, I believe, all of the Viseart palettes. This is available now on their website and Beautylish. Like I said, on their website, you can currently get 30% off. I did order this one through Beautylish because I was testing shipping options. Whenever I order directly from the Viseart website, it takes forever to come in. So I tried Beautylish and it wasn't much faster, but either way, here we are. So this is the new palette, and this is really beautiful. So this is a beautiful spring color story, and this is what the new palette looks like. This is so beautiful. I love the way we have a nice mix of purples and peachy tones and some neutral browns. I think this is beautiful. This is a beautiful spring color story that I think is going to lead into summer very, very well. I also think this is an incredibly wearable color story. Initially, I thought of their spring palette from, I believe, 2 years ago, which was their Paris Love Letter, and this one is beautiful too, and they have a lot of similarities between the two. You can see they both have these purples, these peaches, but the Paris Love Letter has this really beautiful but really random pop of green. Neither one of these palettes has a ton of depth, but you can kind of see the similarities between the two. So I do think they're very, very similar in that regard, but I love that for the new palette, they kind of kept that very random pop of color out. I think this palette is beautiful, but that green really isn't one I get a lot of use out of within this palette just because I don't feel like it has a lot of shades to work with. Whereas with this, I feel like every shadow has its place. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful color story. I will pop up the swatches. Even when I looked at the swatches, I had a good idea of what I wanted to do with this palette. So I love that. So you can see that we do have this really beautiful soft color story, these really truly stunning purple shades, these browns, those peaches just, I feel like, make everything come alive. I think this color story is stunning. I know it's kind of a basic color story in many ways, but it's honestly one of the prettier color stories I've seen in a really long time. So I'm really excited for that. So let me zoom you in. I'll create a different look on each eye, and then I will share my final thoughts. So let's get into it. So I think on one eye, I'm going to really work with those purples, and then on the other, I will play with those more peaches and browns. The way I'm thinking that this palette makes sense is to kind of look at it in sixes. So these first two rows make a palette of 6, and this one makes a palette of 6. You can obviously mix and match however you want, but that's kind of my overall idea for today. So I think I might actually start off with this shade right here. And I'm going to sort of put this one all over the lid, kind of as my base shade. I do already have my Alter Ego eyeshadow primer down, and I set it with some powder, but I thought this shade would be really nice to create a really nice base. And then I want to go in to that light purple. The names are also on the back of the box. I just always forget about that, and I don't think everybody keeps the boxes. But if you do, it is there. So I'm going to buff this light purple into the crease and slightly above. At the end of the video, because they do have their sale going on, I will also let you know of the palettes I have from Viseart, which ones I think are worth picking up, as well as whether I think this one is worth picking up. Okay, I think I want to grab a slightly smaller brush, and I want to go into this shade right here, this slightly deeper purple. And I'm going to concentrate this one toward the outer corner so we can start developing that gradient. That's a really pretty purple. This one would actually probably work in the crease as well. Again, this is not a palette I think you're going to go for if you're looking for a lot of depth. If you're looking for a really smoky look, I think you're better off to go with something else. But for a nice spring color story, I think this is beautiful. I think I might actually go into that larger brush again and just fan out that deeper shade a little bit more. Okay, so the mattes blended beautifully as always, and Viseart does such a great job with purples. We've all said this, but purples can be very hard to formulate, and I feel like Viseart just gets it. So I'm actually going to go into this shade right here, and I want this to be my all over lid shade. Ooh, that's pretty. Okay, that was a good choice. I'm getting a tiny bit of fallout with that shimmer, but it's nothing major. That is such a pretty shade. I am so glad I went in with that one. In the interest of creating a little bit more interest on the outer corner, I might grab the littlest bit of this shade right here, and I might just lightly tap this one on that outer corner to give us a tiny bit more depth. Oh yeah, that did a nice job. Okay, and then I just want to blend that edge a little bit. That's pretty. Again, what I love about Viseart is that I've created a purple eye look, but yet it still looks classy and sophisticated. So I love that. I think that's pretty. I did not expect that I would like the purple look so much. I love a good purple. I've been very much in my neutrals and pinks lately, but oh, that's really pretty. I love that. Okay, let me pop on some mascara and then we will get into the other eye. All right, so here is the final look with the purple shades in the palette, and I absolutely love it. Again, I love Viseart because of how blendable these are, how easy these were to work with, how the shimmers apply with the brush without the need to spray them or anything like that. I love that somehow this is purple but also super wearable. That just makes me happy. Okay, so let's get into the shade right here. So on this side, this will be my crease shade as well. Just the color story alone makes me really, really like this palette. So I think we already know how this video is going to end, but I will of course share all of my thoughts toward the end. Now I'm going to go into that neutral brown right next door. I'm still debating which shade I want all over the lid, but I'm going to again pop this one in that outer corner. Might actually just bring this one up and into the crease as well. I want to dip into that dark brown as well. I just want to see what I can do to create some depth with this look. I just want to see what this palette can do, given that we only have one deep shade. Again, I don't think this is a palette that you're really going to go for if you're looking for those deep smoky looks, but this shade in particular is giving us some of that depth. So if you do want a smokier look and you are a fair to medium skin tone, I think you will be able to accomplish it with that deep brown, but I think any deeper and you're going to be wanting something darker for sure. Okay, so for that main lid shade, I am naturally inclined to want to go into this one, but I think I'm going to go into this other orangey peach type of shade just for the sake of testing things out. Oh, it's pretty though. Oh, it's actually really pretty. It's very, very light. It's definitely not what I expected. When I initially saw it, I thought we were going to get much more of that orangey peach. And I feel like it's just giving a really beautiful sheen to the lids. Okay, that's quite pretty also. I am going to grab just a little bit of this one again, just to sort of mesh that into that outer corner a little bit. Not too much, just enough to mesh them together. Again, this is very much a look I would create any day. I'm still really loving that purple. Let me pop off camera, pop on some mascara, and then I will be back to share my final thoughts on the palette compared to some of the other Viseart palettes I have, and let you know, in lieu of the sale, which palettes I think are worth purchasing. All right, so here is the finished look number 2 with the Paris Reveries palette. This is such a pretty palette, and I will say this is probably my favorite Viseart palette that I have. So I love the way the purple side came out. I like the way the brown side came out. I think they're both so pretty. I love the way the purples are still elegant and sophisticated. I like the way the browns also mess with those peaches a little bit to really give a little bit of a more spring effect. I think it's so pretty. This is just very easy to work with, a very intuitive color story. Is it the most unique? Probably not, but I really like it. And again, I love that it's a very intuitive color story. So for me, this palette is a definite hit. I just had so much fun creating these 2 looks, and they were both so easy. I didn't have to think a little bit too much about what I want to do next. I just knew, and this was just very easy and beautiful to work with. So I love this palette. Earlier on, I did compare this to the Paris Love Letter palette because I think in a lot of ways these have a lot of similarities. They did say this is 12 brand new shades, but you can see that there is some overlap with a little bit of purple, but you get, this one definitely drills down on those peaches and browns a little bit more, but you do get a pop of green and purple in here, whereas this one goes a little bit more into those browns and peaches. So you don't have that random pop of green that doesn't really fit with anything. I would say the same thing for the purple in here, but you can make the purple work. The green, I don't play with too much because I don't really know how to make it work with the rest of these, to be completely honest. This palette, every single shade has a use, and I love it. I think it's absolutely stunning. These are similar in the sense that they're both spring color stories. You're not going to get a ton of depth out of them, but if you have to choose between the 2, I like this one better. This one had previously been a favorite, and I still really like it. It's just that I don't think you necessarily need both of them. If you're picking one, I would go with the new Reverie palette because I do think it's so beautiful. The only other palette I have of this size is the Violette Étendue. And so this one, there really isn't any similarities. The Violette Étendue is definitely very much diving into those purpley tones, but it's a lot more intense than the others. So this one to me is a bit more of a fall color story just because those colors are more rich and intense, whereas this one is just so much softer. I think they could also work very well together though if you wanted them to. But again, I do love the new Reverie palette, so if you're wanting to purchase something during the Viseart sale, I think this is a great option. And I love that they have a new release available as part of their sale. I do highly recommend the Violette Étendue if you love purpley tones. I think this is a beautiful palette, and I do recommend Paris Love Letter as well. I just don't think you need it if you're also getting the Paris Reverie palette. I do recommend both and think they're beautiful. If you think the Paris Love Letter is prettier and you like that green and the purple and some of these tones just a little bit more, then you won't regret it because this palette is beautiful. Otherwise, I have one of their old 8-pan palettes. This, I don't know if this is still available, but this is the Petite Pro 1. And this is just a really good classic color story. I think this is very pretty. But again, I do think this is a beautiful color story if you're looking for something very neutral. But I do think they have more exciting color stories available than they did when I purchased that one. During the holidays, they came out with the Praline Épicée, which I think is absolutely stunning. This is probably one of the least unique color stories that I have from Viseart. I think they have a lot in this line. I think the formula in all of these is excellent. It's consistent throughout all of these palettes. I love this color story. but it's not very unique. So unless you're maybe grabbing it to wear every day, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend this one. In this one, you do get 3 shimmers and 1 matte, so I think that takes away from it just a little bit. To be fair, this one is maybe more of a satin, but these two are definitely quite sparkly, so I don't think that this is an absolute must. I think it's very pretty and I really like it. I just don't think it's a must-have. I also have the Petite for Tyrian palette, which came out during the holidays. I think this one is beautiful. This one isn't one I reach for as often because you have this really deep purple tone here, this deep purple shimmer, and then the champagne shade and this light pink matte. But overall, I think it's very beautiful. To me, this is a very New Year's Eve color story, just with those deep purples and shimmers. So I think this is beautiful. Like I said, for a New Year's palette, for a fall palette, I think it's absolutely beautiful for that. So if you like this color story, I do recommend this quad because it is stunning. And the last 2 quads I have are the 2 newest ones. I have the Isolde palette and the Hesperides palettes. So the Isolde palette is beautiful, and this one is my favorite between the two. This is just a very basic color story. Again, you get a matte, you get a satin, and then you get 2 sparkly shimmers, but I think this is also really pretty if you are looking for an everyday color story. And the Hesperides is really, really pretty as well. You do get this sort of pop of pink that has a bit of a shift. It's got that sort of blue-brown shift that I don't necessarily love, but you get 2 really nice mattes in here. So deciding between the two, I do like the Isolde better, but I do think this is pretty as well. So if any of those were on your list, those are my thoughts. Are you planning to pick up the Paris Reveries palette? Let me know. Are you planning to shop the Viseart sale at all? Let me know. I just love hearing from you guys so much. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!